Hello, this is the Ankh-Morpork Historians Guild. This is part two of our uh, essays going through Terry Pratchett's essays. The first one we did them in order. We're mixing it up a little bit in this one, but it's still the same time period. These all were written very close together. Um, my name is Mulch. I use they them pronouns.
My name is Purtis. I also use they them pronouns.
And my name is Chio, and I use she, her pronouns.
Cool. So we're starting with thought progress, which I've been reading it thought process for the whole time until 2 minutes ago, where I was informed that I am very dyslexic. Uh, so this one was
And they're
written.
not making a joke at the expense of dyslexic people. They are legitimately dyslexic.
Oh, I think
Yes.
I think our I think our listeners, our repeat listeners, have picked up on that fact.
Oh God. Yeah.
Well, I don't
Um,
know. Look, I'm on Twitter, so I've been taught to be incredibly defensive at all times.
Yeah, you should stop
it's a
using
bad
Twitter.
place.
It's kind of
It's
weird
a
how it
bad
has a
place.
bad effect on like kind of your psyche.
um,
You should get off of it because I heard them say that and I didn't think at all. Hey, somebody might fucking try and kill me and dox my family if I if I don't clarify that they are actually this. Like I don't fuck.
um, Okay. So this one was written around the time of he was writing Small Gods when he wrote this, which is uh I love Small Gods, so we all
It,
love Small Gods. Um
it's a perfect book.
Yes, it is currently number one in our list, and it
mhm.
might stay there.
Um so this is just about his creative process and like kind of writer's block and how like um
Is very relatable. This is 100% how writing works.
Psst,
yeah.
speak for
Makes
yourself,
me
coward.
feel better.
It is for many people,
Excuse
however.
you, I was taking inspiration?
Um, so this is just going through Terry Pratchett's day, um, like trying to write this book and like getting kind of and the thing is it makes so much sense that Terry Pratchett writes like this because it's talking about Terry Pratchett ending up like doing weird research instead of actually writing and like avoiding actual writing. And there are so many references in all of Terry Pratchett's books that it makes sense that he would just go down weird rabbit holes of research constantly. Like like he's getting the idea for this climactic scene of this book um because somebody real died by having a tortoise dropped on them and he just thought that was like wild.
Yeah. And you know, he revisits these same philosophers. It's kind of funny if you look at when this was written. This was written 3 years, 1989. Small Gods, 1992. 3 years before before Small Gods. But he was working on it
Mhm.
so long, and he got so distracted that he actually put some of these jokes in his other books, which is really fucking funny. Because in
Yeah.
Eric, they meet Zeno, and they do talk about the turtle paradox, which he references
Uh-huh.
in this essay, and again in Small Gods. Again, it's
Yeah.
that I find such joy in that he's thinking about things for many, many years at a time and revisiting them and kind
Yeah.
of almost obsessing over them. Like it's this funny little thing
He
he's doing.
is he is truly an inspiration to all procrastinators.
um
He's an inspiration to me because I'm thinking about things for years at a time. This is not procrastination.
yeah.
It takes me a
I
long
can't
time to work through some shit.
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
wait till we get to the later essays and we hear about all of the Wikipedia rabbit holes he went down.
Mhm.
Or how much
Don't
he
know that he did
avoided.
that. It's just my procrastination. That's just my prediction.
I do know that one of the things he did for procrastination was Morrowind, the Elder Scrolls video game, which he
Oh
did quite a
yeah.
lot and enjoyed. And I am excited to see that reference somewhere because Morrowind
He
has
Mhm.
just
such
had
a
this weird
peculiar fantasy world that. he is
Yeah.
definitely going to mention it in one of these essays.
Yeah.
Just
Uh,
realized that two of my favorite fantasy writers think have a similar world building style. Both really love procrastination and RPGs.
yeah.
Who's the other one?
Yoshiro Tadashi and Terry Pratchett.
Mm-mm.
Hunter Hunter.
Mhm.
Which I think has a fairly similar world building style to Discworld. That's my hot take I'm
I was
dropping,
about to say,
and I
fascinating
will not
take.
back it up.
I'm not going into it with you, so don't worry. But wild thing to say. Just dropping takes out of nowhere. Hunter x Hunter. Okay.
Excuse you, the X is silent.
No, it's fucking not. I'm anglicizing it. Surprise. Get fucking dunked on. Get fucking anglicized. Hunter x Hunter. And my fucking anglicization, the X is
And
not
we were
silent.
just talking about American imperialism, SMH.
And
If you didn't want me to say the fucking letter, don't put a goddamn letter in there. I don't know. That feels fair. It's the same rules as approaching French people.
the title is actually a ship name. That's what the X is for.
So true, bestie.
That's what Hunter x Hunter is about. It's just two guys named Hunter who fall in love.
Two fuckboys in the mid
They're back.
2000s.
Well, we completely got sidetracked from this essay.
It is in his name. It is in his name that we get distracted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shout out to the commenter who said we swear too much.
We're going down rabbit holes in honor of Terry Pratchett's essay about going down rabbit holes.
So true. This is actually a referential experiment. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else we want to say about thought progress?
It was funny.
Yeah, it was.
He's a very
I liked
funny
it.
man. He's a very funny man. It's compelling, it's nice. And yeah, he really does wander around and then just bang out 2,000 words.
Yeah.
Or
So
15,100. Wait.
Are you correcting me and wrong at the same time?
Okay, there are 4 people in the US with that name.
With the name of the man who we doxed?
We did not dox them.
Well, the one we...
I will take it.
Well, the one whose name we beeped earlier.
We're bleeping it out anyway, but I'm just saying.
I cannot bleep it out
with that name.
I can cut it out.
Are you
I
telling
don't
me
know
there's
how to bleep.
4 people with that name?
You don't know how to fucking bleep?
No, I know how to cut it out.
You just cut that. You can just cut.
Again,
holy shit, we need to figure out how to bleep shit out.
I mean,
again,
you're saying we, but you're just making it Mulch.
Again, I am not a
we just keep telling Mulch to do a bunch of stuff.
I am not a professional. I am just fucking around.
We're just like, hey, Mulch, bleep that out. Bleep that out. You can figure that out, right?
I don't know. I'll try.
I have YouTube tutorials. I just like when I've said your name before, I've just cut it. I've just cut it so that it sounds like the audio blipped. Like, that's
very
just
funny.
what I do.
That works too. You can just cut it and then put in a bleep sound.
Okay, I will make a bleep sound with my mouth.
Instead of snipping them together, you leave that space.
Actually, I think it would be very funny if I bleeped it with my mouth. Like I just said bleep and put it over. That would be very funny.
Or in a different voice, just say
that sounds great.
Okay, let's talk about Roots of Fantasy, though, because there is so much going on in Roots of Fantasy, and I don't really know where to start with Roots of Fantasy.
Roots of Fantasy is lovely. So the basic gist of Roots of Fantasy is him sitting down and observing what we mentioned in our last episode now, which is like that we love to make up stories to explain stuff. And also just like deeply rooted cultural superstition is something he approaches in this, which I think is so lovely. I think and talk a lot about the idea that like we simply can't know most things. As human beings, we
Mhm.
are blessedly unaware of almost everything. That we have to take on faith, even the simplest of principles about the universe, um, because we are so vastly limited. And faith and superstitions are the backbone of this. Um, and so this essay was really exciting for me because this is all I think about, and I sit around completely silent thinking about these things all the time.
Mhm.
Um, and he, as always, just writes such a compassionate examination of that. He tells a story about these nuclear engineers who still have this little belief that there maybe is a pixie. I mean, of course not, but also maybe, like that kind of
Of course
midway
not, but
belief.
also we also can't, like, we can't disrespect the Pixies just in case.
Yeah, of course not, but it'd be a hell of a thing to be wrong, huh? And like all of these little pieces, and also getting defensive, like, oh, hey, you can't say that nobody here believes in it. Well, we don't
Mhm.
believe in it, but you can't say that we don't, which is funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also very
Yeah.
true. I
Oh,
mean,
also, yeah.
like, if I were in that situation, I'm gonna tell you up front, I would be doing exactly the same thing.
Mhm. Um,
Cognitive dissonance be damned.
yeah. I mean, yeah, I've done the same thing too,
State in a
like,
nuclear reactor.
yeah. Um, oh, I find it funny, I forgot, this one has the reference to albums all turning into into Best of Queen,
Yes.
um,
Yeah.
tape.
Yes.
Which is a joke he returns to a lot, like in Good Omens, but also like I think in a few other places. Terry Pratchett returns that joke that all albums, if they're left in the car long enough, turn into Best of Queen albums.
Which
Um,
is
I was curious about
such a
that
funny
when I
joke.
heard it because that's like it's also one that is completely separate from my actual experiences. So I was like
mhm,
fascinated to hear that
yeah. Um,
his explanation, his logical explanation for it.
yeah. No, but this is a cool essay, and it really does like dive into like superstition as being a root of fantasy, or not superstition, but like myth and superstition, and like that just in case idea. Like let's do this just in case. Let's respect the magic creatures, the luck, I think luck, uh, the you know just in case it's real, just in case it has an effect on our lives. Um,
Yeah. Watching like myth arise organically in real time is like a really special experience.
mhm,
I
yeah.
think what's particularly interesting though, and particularly insightful from this, is that he does still hold true to that it's ridiculous to try and form this order. And it is what holds back so much of fantasy. That you can write a book in which this order assuredly actually is true, and it completely detaches it from anything that could represent reality.
Yeah.
And that is a failure, that there is this failure in creating these very simple ordered worlds in which there isn't like anything. Like
Yeah, and I think
there's a thread that goes end from beginning to end, but which doesn't actually represent anything. It just
mhm,
is something you're doing. Which
and
Yeah.
is really great and very true. I've read so many shitty fantasy stories where it's like,
mhm,
okay, you've laid out 6 characters. I know what's gonna happen now. Uh Listen, I checked out this book from the library for a week, so I'm gonna finish it, but don't take it to heart, really. You don't deserve it. Like
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and I think this is the, like, first one where, like, I think he touches on this more directly in other essays, but I think this does touch on the fact that Terry Pratchett has moved away at this point from writing fantasy stories about fantasy stuff, like, and is trying to reflect real people and real life through this fantasy world. Like, he has people who care about real things that reflect ourselves, um in fantasy, and that is part of the humor of it too, but, like, that's what he's interested in, that's what he wants to write, and that's what he's moved to from his beginning writing, and that's what makes him a truly amazing author. Like,
It
um
it's also a great place for him to point out his dedication to absurdity. Not
mhm,
absurdity in the like plain haha funny way, but absurdity in the kind of philosophical way where the
yeah,
things that happen to us are ridiculous. Not because they like just because, like because everything is ridiculous. Because it's absurd that even I could just exist right now and the amount of things that had to happen and how impossibly complex it all is just absolutely absurd. He has a severe dedication to it that he
mhm,
feels is lacking in so much of other
Yeah.
fantasy. Uh, that and
That's
this
an
is his like great first time to write it because it's central to Discworld and it's central to a lot of how he writes. Right, Color of Magic is essentially trying to do that perfectly. Right, these absolutely absurd stories that just take him everywhere, and you have a central character who has no control over it and merely has to
mhm,
witness that life keeps happening.
yeah,
Like that's
yeah,
that's
an
philosophical absurdity to its core, and he gets way
mhm,
better at writing it. But this is his first essay where he gets to directly say that, which I thought was really
it's
nice.
something that he actually has another essay that isn't entirely about that. Mm, uh, whose fantasy is it?
yeah, and
Basically,
Yeah, whose fantasy
that's
are you?
the next one I wanna talk about because that is that is what that essay is about, and I love "Whose Fantasy Are You?" Like,
Yeah,
um,
yeah, it's a really
whose
good essay.
fantasy are you not? Whose fantasy is it? Whoops.
yeah, um,
Um,
do um,
I mean, let's move into that. If
yeah,
because I
let me
think they
just
are so interrelated. These came out just a couple of years apart from each other,
mhm,
which to him is nothing.
yeah,
Yeah.
They
um,
came out 2 years apart from each other. Um,
so yeah, and "Whose Fantasy Are You?" is that that I was just talking about is really it's 2 pages, and it's such a good explanation of what really draws me to Terry Pratchett's writing, is that it is so human, and that is what he's interested in writing. He's interested in writing this making real life absurd, and making but having these real people at the core of it, or these real feeling characters at the core of it, to reflect us, who reflect they're worried about real life things in this ridiculous fantasy world, and that's such a great combination. Like,
it's
um
it's recognizing that this fantasy world is no more absurd than our own existence, and that no
mhm,
matter where you place us, we would still be people, and fundamentally, people would still react to these things a certain way. Like that's his kind of infinite proposal.
yeah,
Is that this is no more absurd. It's no more ridiculous to think that this is that you could live on a world that was a flat Earth on the back of elephants on the back of a tortoise than it is to say that we float around on a giant ball of molten lava that just happens to be temporarily cooled on its surface by a random collection of gases that happened to float against our grand structure, and that all of
yeah,
that sits in the balance of a great sun, and that sun itself spins around an even greater object so vast that we can't understand it at all, and that itself floats around a greater expansion that we have no conception of. No disrespect to scientists, but the Big Bang is something that's really hard to study, and we're doing really hard, but we still know only an inkling of an inkling of an inkling of it. It's
Yeah.
no more absurd to see these two things, and that we would just live. We would just live and die and pay taxes and love and
Mhm.
get drunk and sing stupid songs with our dwarf buddies.
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
God, Terry Pratchett fucking warped my brain in high school.
Because he was such a good writer, you couldn't read other books. Um,
Well, I was specifically talking about my weird atheist religious crisis in high school.
oh yeah, yeah, you were chilling. You were having a moment.
My entire life is just me having a moment.
mhm. Um,
Sorry
God.
about the noises, by the way. Whiskey's been climbing all over me.
So yeah, the next one we were going to talk about is Elves Were Bastards, which is also very related. It's very angry at fantasy,
Which is a
like
fucking banger, by the way. Angry
yeah,
Terry Pratchett, good.
yeah. This is the only one I actually took notes for. Like I highlighted parts of this. Um, it is Terry Pratchett being angry at bad or being angry at formulaic fantasy that's about these heroes and like not real people. Um,
Which
I
is
just
a
like heroes.
frustration I have with fantasy a lot.
Yeah. Um, I just like heroes. You can't trust the buggers. I don't believe in the natural nobility of kings, because a large percentage of them in our history have turned out to be power-crazed idiots, and I certainly don't believe in the wisdom of wizards. I've worked with their modern equivalents. And just the idea that fantasy should be worthwhile, like, it should if it's escapism, it should bring you somewhere. It should bring you to a new place with interesting ideas, and you should leave it taking something from it as a person. Like, and that's really like, books that do that are the most are truly worthwhile to read. That is why, you should read books. It gives you new things. Um,
Yeah. I think that's something I really enjoy about Terry Pratchett and why he's one of the only fantasy writers I really enjoy is because he takes sci-fi sensibilities and uses them in fantasy settings.
mhm,
Because he's a sci-fi reader a lot of the time. He's started in sci-fi stuff, and his other sci-fi books remain some of my favorite that he's ever made. The Long Earth fucking shattered me as a youth.
mhm,
I can confirm this as somebody who witnessed it.
Yeah, when the Long Earth came out in 2012, I was 14. I think I probably read it when I was 15. Destroyed me. Perfect book. Um,
yeah,
fucking crushed me. Um, but he took those sci-fi ideals. I mean, sci-fi is rife with absurdity and hatred for kings, and this idea that we can recontextualize society and understand it better if we do that. And that's
mhm,
what he seeks to do in an awful lot of his books. It's
Weird thing is, I do
what
see
makes them
that
so
in
lovely.
fantasy.
I do see
I
it in
do see that
fantasy
in fantasy.
for sure. I don't want to disregard all fantasy writers, but fantasy does definitely still have this kind of whole group of writers that write. I mean, paperbacks. They're paperback writers. Pump these motherfuckers out.
Yeah.
mhm,
They're
Oh,
pulps.
yeah.
They're pulps. You don't expect a lot out of them. You're like, okay, big dude with the sword. He's gonna save the world. Maybe he'll come up with a sick monster. And that's kind of what I'm getting out of this.
yeah,
And that's
yeah,
and that's what he's critiquing here is that there's so much of this in the fantasy genre where you're just like, why? Like, what are you doing with this? Why are you making this? Like,
Oh, yeah.
give it some fucking respect. Uh,
yeah,
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 fantasy does have a pretty big issue with
mhm.
sort
No, I
of
love
formulaic non-stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really liked this essay too. Um,
And
yeah.
yeah, he is
So,
mad when he writes. He's angry. It's funny, man.
Mhm.
Um,
Curtis, I have a quick question.
yeah.
Does this give you hope for lords and ladies?
I do love Elves Were Bastards. Like I I've mentioned this a couple times before, but I fucking hate elves in fantasy, and they're like one of my least favorite genre tropes. They
Yeah.
really they really frustrate me. Um, just kind of in a lot of ways. Um, it does, listen, he's the best writer ever, right? Like he's one of the best writers I've ever read. He's a funny fantasy writer, and he gets as much depth out of it as like a Haruki Murakami work. Um, don't tell my dad I said that, but you know,
Does your dad love Haruki Murakami, or does he hate Haruki Murakami?
loves him, which very valid.
Okay.
Kafka on the Shore, IQA4, very very good, but Norwegian one. So like I'm always hopeful,
Hmm.
but
Um,
I'll I'll
we'll
fucking
see. We'll see how it
we'll
is.
see. Yeah, I'll judge it when I judge it. I'm gonna start it after this. I'm literally gonna go outside after
Mhm.
this and start Lords and Ladies. So we'll fucking see. I will say, A Midsummer
Oh wait.
Night's Dream which is what it's parodying, is like one of my favorite Shakespeare's, which is,
Yeah.
I would
Um,
say,
I.
probably my second favorite Shakespeare comedy after A Comedy of Errors.
Mhm. Um, were we gonna do Good Omens first though? For
Oh
Oh
shit!
yeah, should we?
Yeah, we can do Good Omens.
okay. Thank you.
Okay.
I know. Hey, this one goes out for you, Mulch. You definitely worked the hardest out of all of us on this podcast. So
But yeah,
congrats,
Mulch is the
congrats.
only one who does actual behind the scenes work on this podcast.
Hey, I
If
set
that
up a
hasn't
noise
become
gate
totally clear.
today.
Purtis records. Purtis records.
It's a nothing. I
Um,
Okay.
do nothing. I do nothing. I do
Okay,
nothing.
never mind. I'm just not carrying my weight.
um,
Don't let them trick you.
okay.
I do nothing. Um,
Um, uh, yeah. Uh,
but
I
yeah,
liked this one. I'm a big Good Omens fan. That's why I want to do it. We should do Long Earth though too.
the
Uh,
I have
Long
a
Earth
quick
didn't come out till
question.
2012, so we're not going to reach that era until, I don't know, 2 years from now. So
okay.
Are we
this dude
doing
has so
Well,
many
in
are
two
we
fucking
years,
books.
in
are we
two
doing
years we'll do Long Earth.
just the Good Omens books, or the Good Omens book and the show?
It will be
Because I think
impossible for us to not at least mention some of the differences between
yeah,
the books and shows, because it
I
is
think we should
interesting that Neil Gaiman pretty like focus on very different things. And yes, to his credit, he had some of the stuff written for the TV show with Terry Pratchett before Terry Pratchett's death. But he is still the showrunner actively, and his parts definitely got a bigger spotlight, which I'm not saying he did out of any kind
Mhm.
of vengeance or any kind of desire to take credit. I think it's just a part of the story he understood better.
think it's just the nature of like writing something.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
Yeah, it's very intimidating to write other people's
he
characters. Like,
can't turn into Terry Pratchett.
And
yeah.
and to be honest, making a TV show about Adam and the them is way, way harder than making a TV show about Aziraphale and Crowley. Because
Despite their uselessness to the plot.
because Adam and the them are kind of just kids fucking around for a lot of the book. Like weird stuff
Mhm.
happens, but they are like, again, just human beings written with kindness and compassion to an incredible degree.
Yeah.
But just kids. It doesn't make a very good TV show.
I think
Mhm.
another thing, like it's a pretty long TV show. I think we should like do a two-parter.
Yeah,
If we're
I think we're gonna
one
do.
where we talk predominantly about the book, another where we talk predominantly about the show.
I personally would
Like I
say
don't think
that
they
we
can be totally separated, but
I personally would prefer to just do one episode where we talk predominantly about the book, And like maybe mention some of the changes or the ways that we enjoy some of the changes at the end.
Mhm.
I don't have a
Maybe we
particular
could
interest in rewatching the show and rereading this book.
yeah, maybe we could return to the show once I mean, we're planning to do some of the movies and stuff, so maybe we can return to
Oh,
that
yeah.
in 2 years when we get to that period of time, or, like,
Keep in
you know
mind, I'm going to force you to watch The Watch with me.
I hate that,
Yeah,
thanks.
I mean, hey, let's see if we get to
Going
that
to
point in the chronology.
It's going to be very
Um
violent.
Give me 100 Patreon subscribers and I will do it.
Okay,
Don't have a Patreon.
Yep,
okay,
I
so,
am acutely aware.
so really quick, let's talk about this last essay, because I wanna talk about this last essay,
What's the
which is
last?
not the last
Oh no!
chronologically.
You got fucking
This is
duped.
This is 1986. This is the introduction to Roy Lewis's The Evolution Man. I'm the only one who wanted to do this, and that's because I read the book. I read The Evolution Man. This is the foreword for The Evolution Man,
Uh,
and The Evolution Man, to be clear, was written in the 60s. It was written in the 60s. Um, and
Boy, was it
it's
written in the 60s.
what? It wasn't?
No, boy, was
He
it.
said,
Since it was first published in 1960.
Yeah. So it was
Um,
probably written in the 1950s by a British
yeah.
person during the
Um,
scramble out of Africa.
yeah.
This, uh
So, um, uh, Terry Pratchett describes this as one of the funniest books in the last 500,000 years. I think that's that number that is.
I thought it was
And
50,000.
it's
Don't worry about it. It don't matter that
it's
much.
5 zeros. So
500,000.
I understand why Terry Pratchett found this book funny. It is very uniquely written. It is it is an interesting read, and it is funny in that it is about British people as caveman men. Um,
It's very
and
Terry Pratchett
talking
sounding.
like yeah, like talking philosophy and like going through it's basically a book about one family, one going through a large period of human evolution. It's going through discovering fire, making new tools, creating marriage, and what's it? Exomany, like not monogamy, basically. Um, it's not having sex with your sister. It's about that, and I understand why Terry Pratchett found it funny. It is also incredibly racist and sexist, and I could not stand it. Um, and it makes perfect sense that it is, but, like, I sent you guys some quotes from this book, and, like, it was so obnoxious to read, and, like, I hated how he wrote women characters, I hated how he wrote gender, and it's in the 1950s, I understand, but they are not human people, like, the women in this are not human people, and the men are, and they're it's to the point where they're like, you hunted and stalked me for weeks as I ran away from you, like yelling and stuff. That is so sexy. That is so sexy. And then
I
he
mean,
gets
well, she can
mad
do
at
that to me
her.
anytime.
That's different. That's different. and I, and I totally would, but like, um, it's
It's rough.
it's rough. This is a rough book, and he Terry Pratchett led me astray on this one, and I understand, like, it makes perfect sense that he did, but I still feel so betrayed. Um, like,
Dude,
also just the evolutionary knowledge in this book is so like it's from the 1950s and it's so outdated, and I've only taken one anthropology class, but that was enough to find the evolutionary information in this book so obnoxious and so racist, and like I really can't believe I read this whole book. I regret it 100%. Um, yeah.
You actually went out and bought a physical copy
Yep.
too,
Yep, I
didn't
did.
you?
Yep, and I own it now, and that is something that is in my house.
It's okay. Your dad's gonna love it.
Um, he might.
I
He
know
would
that he
probably
will. I think he's going to
he
really
would
enjoy it.
genuinely find it funny. And it is funny. It is enjoyable to read half the time until any woman is on screen, or they start talking about fucking evolution and how, like, they said something weird about uh Asian people at one point, like, that I was just like, "Oh, jeez, this is bad."
Yeah, we can't actually
Um,
read the lines that are in there because I don't think we should have a recording of us saying these things. Since some of them are really rough.
yeah, no,
Mulch
I
was reading
changed that
this,
because
and Mulch was reading this, and was just like sending us screenshots, like, "Woof."
yeah. I was taking pictures of the book and sending it to you guys at the highlights, which are bad. They are bad.
Yeah, the
And I
lowlights.
cannot yeah, and I changed my wording on that because I could not physically say what they said. Um, yeah. That's my
Yep.
rant. That's my rant about this book. Um, rest in fucking pieces. Okay. Anything you guys wanna bring up before we end this, episode?
Do you think Terry Pratchett has a lawyer who went through his book and said, "Hey, you cannot ever mention Douglas Adams. They'll know. You can't talk
Well,
about Douglas Adams."
he does mention Douglas Adams at some point in something.
And something, because I always feel like Douglas Adams is so clearly such a big influence on him,
Um,
but he like
so
didn't
Yeah.
really go into Douglas Adams in any of these books. Um,
so,
and I think it's really
um,
interesting.
I know that at some point Terry Pratchett said what we so we got because so Terry Pratchett got a bad review from a newspaper, and part of it said, like Hitchhiker's Guide is also overrated, and said these bad things about Hitchhiker's Guide, and then says this is like these books are like the child of or something uh of Hitchhiker's Guide, and they what they did was they took that part of the quote and put it on his books. They put it on whatever book this was talking about.
Oh,
Yeah.
I would be so pissed.
Which is very funny.
Yeah, I was about
Which
to
is
say this is the
very
funniest
funny.
fucking shit I've ever heard.
Yeah.
uh,
And I need to find where I learned that because I will send it to you guys. Um, once I find it again. Um, yeah,
That
which
is
is very
very
funny.
funny. It would make me mad if I was the writer of the book, and it would also make me mad if I was the reviewer.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Well,
I just feel like I don't know. I know that his works get compared a lot, and I don't like really think they ever met. Like I've never heard of the two meeting, but it seems so unrealistic that they wouldn't, because
uh-huh.
they were really popular, working on the same ideas from the same country at the same time.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, I will say there's not as much overlap as we might want to think, because because Douglas Adams did die in 2001. Just double checked it. I knew he died pretty young, uh,
Mhm.
relatively, unfortunately. But still, like, fuck. Come
Yeah.
on. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah.
Also, it is still the greatest sadness of my entire life that Eowyn Colfer wrote the last Hitchhiker novel and not Terry Pratchett. I know Terry Pratchett
Yes.
probably wouldn't have done it, but God, if I could have had
Oh,
that.
but if it would have been so good.
God, if I could have had that. And no offense to Eowyn Coldford, but I wasn't a huge fan of the sixth novel. It didn't feel like the other ones at all.
Yeah.
Not Eowyn Coldford's fault, just like that's a very
God,
specific writing style.
what book was Sorry for the Inconvenience? Because that stuck with me for a long time.
What book was
Um,
Sorry for the Inconvenience?
like they find the meaning of life, and it's
That's one of the
That
Hitchhiker's
might be
Guide,
the single.
I
That
think.
might be the single most famous Hitchhiker's Guide thing.
Yeah.
uh-huh.
I don't remember. There's a radio show that came out first, and then later it got novelized. But not all of the books had a radio show originally. I think it's like the first two he did the radio show first, but then they got novelized differently. Blah blah blah. But I think that might be the restaurant at the end of the universe, or potentially
Yeah.
Life, the Universe, and Everything, which is either the second or third.
Yeah.
I'm almost certain it's not So Long and Thanks for All the Fish because that's my favorite one.
Hmm.
But God knows.
Yeah.
um,
Okay. Uh, yeah. Is that a wrap?
yeah,
Question
yeah, yeah,
mark.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I
That's
think
good
it's
though.
a wrap.
We're fucking brilliant.
Okay.
Let's get out of here.
Yeah. Have a good night. This is really we're really going to bed this time, or like leaving this time. We recorded 2 episodes at once. And we did not leave at the end of the last one, but
What is this show
we're
business?
we're leaving
We're
at the
not
end of
supposed to
this
do
one.
this.
Okay.
Can't peel the curtain back.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Peace out.